Not audible. You're on mute. Pradnya, you're on mute.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I, CA Pradnya Bam, would like you to invite to the today's webinar organized by Ethical Standards Board, Institute of Chartered Accountants, uh, as ICI Code of Ethics Navigating Ethical Challenges. In today's dynamic and evolving and complex world, it's imperative that we, as chartered accountant, understand our ethical boundaries and the way we want to associate with those challenges. As the world is evolving, the stakeholders demand more transparency, accountability from us as professionals. So, with today's seminar, ESB has decided to take this vital initiative to us all chartered accountants in helping us to understand how to navigate those ethical challenges. I would like to welcome today CA Chandrasekhar Chitroy sir, our CCM and also chairman for Ethical Standards Board. Chitre sir has been a vital distinguished chartered accountant and senior partner at CV Chitra and Company. He has been a member of Sectoral Council of ICI since 2019-22, 22 to 25, and now 25 to 29. For the year 25-26, he has been appointed as the chairman of Ethical Standard Boards and Board of Internal Audit and Management Accounting and vice chairman of the Committee on International Taxation. He has also previously served as chairman of the Direct Taxes Committee and Peer Review Board. Beyond ICI, he has contributed extensively to industry bodies, having been treasurer of MCCIA for a decade and currently serving as chairman of its Direct Taxes Committee and member of its executive committee. He was also nominated to the Cost Accounting Standard Boards of ICMAA and has held leadership roles such as chairman of Pune branch of ICI. An academic at heart, C.A. Chitwe sir has lectured at various commerce colleges and management institutions and authored several articles in reputed publications like Taxman, Economic Times, Times of India, and others. His notable authored works include User's Guide on Tax Audit, VDIS, and Service Tax for Professionals, with his writing earning awards such as Best Article Prize in the PCAS Journal. Specializing in direct taxes, drafting and conveyancing, and corporate counseling, C.A. Chitresar has delivered numerous lectures at seminars, conferences, and public forums, including the prestigious Vasanta Vyakkhanmala, reflecting his deep commitment to professional education and public engagement. With this, also, I would like to add that Chitre sir has been mentor for all of young chartered accountants here, and we have been privileged to get his mentorship throughout our career and also at Pune branch. I would like to request Chitre sir to give his opening remarks on this today's program.
Thank you, Pradnya. With me on screen is the distinguished lecturer, C.A. Shweta Jain, who has delivered maybe more than 100 lectures on this particular topic of Code of Ethics. And she is passionate about study. We have our secretary, Ashish Swarup Bhatnagar, who is also coordinating these activities of Ethical Standards Board. So in case of ethical challenges, it is not really challenge. These are the opportunities. Because in a sense, if you consider any assignment which can be carried out by a chartered accountant and by a person who is not a chartered accountant, maybe otherwise qualified or maybe a commerce graduate. Take a simple example of accounting, maybe others, management services, drafting, conveyancing, or maybe any assignment in information technology, artificial intelligence. Under those services. But what distinguishes a chartered accountant and other person is when you are entrusting any assignment to a chartered accountant, you are sure that he is following certain code of ethics. So maybe confidentiality, he will not discuss the assignment with anyone else. Whatever you have discussed, you informed him is used only for your assignment. The knowledge of the subject for which he is accepting the assignment. So these are certain prerequisites which are stipulated by the code of ethics and which each and every chartered accountant follows. And that distinguishes the chartered accountancy profession from any other profession. Even we have a regulated disciplinary bodies, disciplinary benches that where complaint is made for not observing the provisions of code of ethics. The cases are tried in this disciplinary committees. Besides chartered accountants, there are also government nominees they are also judges in these particular matters, and therefore whatever judgment comes out of this disciplinary committee are impartial judgments, seeing whether the provisions of law and code of ethics, not only by the letter but by its spirit, whether they are followed or not. So indeed, the codification of this ethics has helped the profession to progress. But whatever has been enacted maybe a decade ago or 2 decades ago, if you walk with those vehicles today, maybe one will have to walk with the time. And this board, with its members, is trying to match its steps with the times. Now, couple of aspects on which the Ethical Standards Board has taken view. Like earlier, there was a directive from the Ethical Standards Board that if you are a chartered accountant in practice, you cannot print a photograph on your visiting card. So maybe in yesteryears it was considered not so appropriate. But then in today's era of social various activities or social media, you are there on Facebook, you are there on LinkedIn, your face photograph appears in your mobile phones, WhatsApp. So what is so great in not allowing the photographs on your visiting cards? So that was deliberated at the Ethical Standards Board, and the board felt that okay, the circumstances are such that that embargo which existed earlier in current times is not relevant, because even otherwise you are allowed to disclose your photograph, and if the photograph is there on your visiting card, maybe it is given to someone else, and if the person you locate somewhere, you are traveling in train or you are traveling in air, and you locate that person, maybe you will be able to meet him, talk to him. Otherwise, without his photograph, to recognize that person if the person is unknown to you. And again, you are printing your own photograph, not somebody else's photograph. So there is nothing like impersonation. So the Ethical Standards Board took a view that yes, you can print the photographs even if you are holding certificate of practice. And last month there was a council meeting, so council also approved this particular decision. So as of today, you can print photographs on visiting cards even if you are holding certificate of practice. So such decisions are on the anvil. We are having next month the meeting of Ethical Standards Board. So there certain other aspects also will be considered by the board. If the audience feels, because felt that we are at the loggerheads, that we are not allowed to advertise, we are not allowed, because there is embargo as far as the Chartered Accountants Act is concerned. Mind well, it is not the stipulation by under Code of Ethics, it is the legal provision that if you solicit professional activities, if you advertise, so that is not permitted. But then a thought process is there, and where the board will take a call, and there I expect also feedback from the audience, from experts, that there are two types of activities which a chartered accountant is engaged into. One is where it is a prerogative of the profession. Take example of an audit. So if you are doing audit of a company, it is exclusive domain of a chartered accountant. If you are issuing certain certificates, that is exclusive domain of the profession of chartered accountancy. But there are certain activities where you are competing with others who are other professionals and other who are not so professionally qualified but rendering services. To list out some, as I stated earlier, start rightly from a simple activity like accounts writing. Even if we say accounts has become a capital of outsourcing. So all across the globe, maximum outsourcing of accounting work is done from India. Information technology, legal services, appellate proceedings, even in corporate scenario, we are rendering various services, managing activity. So a thought that should we allow the advertisement or soliciting such type of activities where the chartered accountant in practice is in competition with others, and there is no such embargo on advertisement on others who are rendering similar services, because that will afford the level playing ground. Fine. On which there would be deliberations with an Ethical Standard Board. The board will come to the conclusion as is considered appropriate. However, it will need change in the Chartered Accountants Act. So maybe we have set up a group for the purpose of proposing those changes. So this also we may go to the government, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, and then we will canvas that okay, whatever provision is there needs to be changed. So such type of activities, there are others. For want of time, I'm not dilating on much. So if you feel that wherever opening up is required and where code of ethics is causing some impediment in seamless practice, maybe you can inform to the ethical standards board or to me or to Shweta also. She is heading this ethical standards board from Western India Regional Council. The email ID of Ethical Standards Board, you are aware, it is esb@ici.in. You can send mail also. So we would expect such support from the membership, because it is easy to complain that okay, something is not doing, code of ethics is hurting us. But then wherever it is hurting, unless you communicate, it may not be addressed by the board, because the entire wisdom doesn't sit into the board. The wisdom sits in the membership in general. So I solicit your views on the topics which is being discussed today, and the topics which you feel that there are concerns and that those need to be addressed. We are very lucky that Shweta, who has studied this code of ethics from various aspects, lectures. While delivering lectures, maybe in physical note, several queries come up. So those queries also enlighten the lecturer, and then those the lecturer refine, because they know then where the shoe pinches. So I'm sure that her experience, her knowledge, and her expertise, I think it will be reflected today while you are sitting before your screen. So I'm sure that whatever aspects of challenge are there, Shweta will cover. If you feel there are anything more she should elucidate, maybe you can put in chat box. Pradnya will address those issues and she can ask Shweta while the lecture ends. Thank you and welcome, Shweta.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Over to you,
Uh,
Pradnya.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chitra sir, for your opening remarks. It indeed give us more clarity on where the ethical standard boards is letting on the profession, how we want to bridge the gap with today's future world. Uh, Also, I mean, in general, I think there is no how to balance their professional work and ethical dilemmas. It's always like, everyday question where whatever actions we are doing, is it matching with the professional ethics and the trust which we have been bestowed upon for past years. So, as a chartered accountant, it's our responsibility that whatever work we do it ethically to maintain the respect and dignity which we have received by receiving the chartered accountant's qualification. And to help with us, it's indeed my privilege. I've been a listener to Shweta ma'am's different seminars, and it's indeed my privilege today to introduce her for today's seminar, our speaker, C.A. Shweta Jain ma'am. As Sir mentioned, she also heads the Ethical Standard Board at Western Institute of Regional Council. So, C.A. Shweta ma'am is a qualified chartered accountant. She also holds a diploma in information system audit and a diploma in IFRS from ACCA UK. She has done various certificate course offered by ICA like Cooperative Society Audit, Forensic Audit, IFRS, and Master in Business Finance. To elaborate on her professional pursuits, she's upskilled her concurrent and statutory audits of private and public sector banks. She works in listed companies and private limited companies and other enterprises domain. Her innovative thought process and eye for detail with problem solving skills has helped her in undertaking various opportunities in profession and for the profession. With her managerial skills, she also specializes in company law matters, accounting standards, Ind AS, and IFRS. She holds position as independent director in various listed companies. She was secretary of WRC of ICI for 20 to 23 and was chairperson in various committees at WRC like ethical standard, digital accounting and assurance, social audit and sustainability, financial market and investor protection for 23-24. She was also chairperson in Women Members Excellence Committee and Social Audit and Sustainability Committee at WRC for 24-25. She is currently chairperson in Committee for Members in Industry and Business and Ethical Standards Committee at WRC for 25-26. She was also chairperson of Vasai branch of WRC for ICI for 2012 to 13. imparting her knowledge and sharing experiences with thorough analysis and practical session, while discussions with members as regular speaker on topic of code of ethics and bank audits for chartered accountants, with the aim of keeping the profession high esteemed. She is a soft skills trainer too, and have been involved in training of CA students in various programs like OT, GMCS, held by ICI as a lecturer since 2008 to 2018. She has also been awarded with Women Achievers Award from Vasai branch of WRC of ICI. She has also been awarded with Best Women CA of Year 2017 across India in the category of Leading Women CA in Profession by To Global Business Information. She is social worker and associated with various organizations like Jain Chartered Accountant Federation, Bharat Vikas Parishad, Jain International Trade Organization. With so many accolades, it's my esteemed privilege to welcome Shweta Jain ma'am to conduct today's session. So, not taking further time, I would request Shweta ma'am to please start the session, and thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pradnya, for the kind words and also setting up the tone for today's session. So on screen, Chairman of ESB, C.V. Chitle sir, Pradnya as a moderator. Also, I can see the Secretary ESB, Ashish ji, and others. And all the participants, a very good evening to all of you. And at the outset, let me extend my heartfelt thanks to Chairman C.V. Chitle sir of ESB. Sir, thank you for this opportunity. I also would take a moment to appreciate and acknowledge the continuous efforts of Ethical Standard Board in strengthening ethical practices within our profession. And since you mentioned printing photographs on a visiting card is now approved in the council, it's definitely a welcome step. And I'm sure I have witnessed personally also by work of ESB. So really, thank you so much for all the efforts.
Yeah, printing of photograph is wholeheartedly welcome by female members.
So for the profession, anyways, for recognition, everyone's important.
Yes.
So, of course, it's truly an honor and privilege for me to address this gathering of committed professionals. So, in today's rapidly evolving businesses environment, we as a chartered accountant are frequently confronted with ethical challenges, be it maintaining independence, managing conflict of interest, safeguarding confidentiality, or standing firm against under influence. So, rightly said by Chitle sir that ethics is not a challenge. You should take it as a opportunity. But equally true is, as you all will agree, as the real challenges does not lie in merely knowing the code of ethics, but in applying it consistently, fearlessly, and with sound knowledge of sound professional judgment, I can say. So, in today's session, Navigating Ethical Challenges, we will talk not only to revisit our fundamental principles, which is mentioned in ICI Code of Ethics Volume 1, but also will explore how these principles are interpreted and implemented in real world professional situation. So over the next 1.5 hours, I can say we will walk through case-based discussion and some practical examples with the background of theory also. So with that, let us begin this meaningful journey into the world of ethical decision making and responsible professional conduct. Just allow me 1 minute to share my screen. Is it visible completely? If anyone can confirm, please. Okay. So, overview of code of ethics. So, to understand the code of ethics, it is important to briefly explore its history and recent development till date and how new code of ethics looks like. This is really important. So if we talk about evaluation of the code, so first edition of the ICI Code of Ethics, earlier it was called as Code of Conduct. So first time it was introduced in 1963. And since then it has been periodically revised to stay aligned with global and domestic professional standard. So since 1963 to till date, it was revised 11 times. And the current version of our Code of Ethics is our 12th edition, which is made effective from 1st July 2020. So about structure of new code, earlier code was having two parts. Part A, which was based on the IFAC and ISBA Code of Ethics 2005, and which was issued as a council guideline. And there were Part B, which was based on domestic Indian provisions. But in new current Code of Ethics, which is our 12th edition, it is divided into three parts. So volume 1 is based on the ISBA code 2018. Volume 2 incorporates Indian legal regularity requirements, which we generally face in our day-to-day practice, whether we can do this or not, just like an advertisement guideline or something. So this is all part of volume 2. Volume 3 contents various clarification, announcement, and some guideline and some case studies. The cases which has happened to the DC. So some of the important cases have incorporated here in volume 3. Applicability of this new code is to both for the members in practice and members in service. So there are some sections also introduced which is applicable to members in industry, chartered accountant also. So some important changes which has happened after this revision, which was happened in 2020. So due to COVID-19 pandemic situation, some important provisions were deferred and later on it made applicable from 1st October 2022. So the first, I will just give you a glance what was the deferred provision. So first provision was, which was deferred was section 260 and 360. The section was NOCLAR, non-compliances with laws and regulation. And this NOCLAR talks about responsibility of an accountant when he encountered any non-compliances of any law, regulation during the audit period. So which means if you are doing an audit and if you found something, some other laws and regulation, some activities is going on in the company, which is basically against of fundamental ethics of business also, or some sections, something is happening in the company and you come across the situation while doing your audit. So you cannot turn blind eye to the matter. So NOCLAR bound you to say that you have to report it if you come across such situation, whether it is under your law sections or not. Say example, I am doing an audit of as per the company's law. But if I come across some PMLA Act violation or something like that, so in that case also I have to report it. See, NOCLAR, this section has been introduced in our Code of Ethics now. But Companies Act, section 143, maybe 12 is for fraud reporting. It is talking about since then that if you come across such situation, then of course you have to report it. You cannot turn a blind eye to the matter. So the same thing we have incorporated in our Code of Ethics in this new revisions. So currently this section 260 and 360 is having a limited application. But this section is applicable to both, as I said, that for members in practice also and industry also. Then after this provision, one more provision was deferred, was para 41032 or 410.6. This is related to fees relative size. So basically this section addresses independence threat. When a significant portion of your total fees coming from one client, which means if you are earning a significant amount of your total fees from one single client, then this section will be applicable to you. So in this section, they have said that if this dependency is continuing for 2 years, then you have to report it to the ICI, something like that. So then third provision which was deferred was subsection 604, tax services to audit client. So before that, in earlier code of ethics or code of conduct, there were no restriction in providing a taxation services to our audit client, which means if I am doing an audit of a company, so can I file a ITR of that company? Can I provide some other consultancy also to that company related to taxation or something like that? So earlier code was silent about it. But in this new code, they've put some restrictions on some tax services which you are providing to your audit client to safeguard your independence and evaluation of threat. You can do it at your own. That choice is given to you. So example we can take and we can understand from this is like this is not restricting completely because they have divided this taxation services into 4 parts. Say example ITR filing. ITR filing I can do it with my audit services also because ITR filing is just a mere of filing of form. I'm not using any calculation for it. But if I'm providing a calculation of advanced tax, then definitely this is a threat if you are providing both the services together. The same thing is, if I can provide a valuation services to the company and I'm doing an audit, again, it is a conflict of interest. So you have to see that, you have to evaluate at your own self that by doing these 2 activities together, whether you are compromising of any your principle or something like that. So say example, representing before the authority. Of course, it may attract advocacy threat because you have done the audit. At one point of time, you said that my financials are reflecting true and fair view. And at the time of maybe appeal scrutiny, and if you are attending the same, of course, and if officer has disallowed some expenses or some deductions they have disallowed. So at that time, the question may come that whether you have not done audit correctly or what exactly. So some kind of situation may arise. So you have to be very careful. So these was the 3 sections which was deferred and made applicable from October 22. So ESB has issued several clarification post the release of 12th edition to address practical implementation issues. So this is also there on ESB website. And latest compilation of FAQs, which was published in Jan 2025, this is also there at our Ethical Standard Board website. So you can go through at any point of time. So these all together are ICI Code of Ethics, cover all these things. So today what we shall talk, so we will talk about, we are going to discuss the fundamental principles and the various threat to compliances with these principles, जो कि हमारे volume 1 Code of Ethics में लिखे हैं. So this volume is based on volume 1. I covered that earlier also, that this is based on international code ISBA, and it serves as a foundation for ethical conduct in our profession. So we will talk in detail about all 5 fundamental principles, which is integrity, objectivity, professional competence, confidentiality, and professional behavior. Also, because this understanding this principle is not just about a theory, it is about recognizing how they guide our decisions and actions in real life professional scenario. So we will also look at the type of threats that can compromise this principle and how we professionals are expected to identify, evaluate, and respond to them appropriately. So the threats can be self-interest threat, self-review threats, advocacy threat, familiarity threat, and intimidation threat. So with examples, we will discuss for better understanding. But why we are discussing, why the ethics is matter. So if you ask me, ethics is not just a set of rules written in any book. What I believe is it comes from within. So it's shaped by our values, our upbringings, our consciousness. So we cannot codify it. However, in today's complex professional landscape, it becomes essential to codify ethics. Not because just we lack values, but to preserve public trust, maintain their confidence in our signature, and uphold the dignity and reputation of our profession. So in real life situation, we often face moments where something may seem practical, sometimes it seems very normal, casual, or even legally acceptable. And you may hear always like इतना तो चलता है, ये तो it's normal है, ये तो हर business में होता है, something kind of. But as professional, we are entrusted with public confidence. So we don't just choose what is convenient or legal. We always must choose what is ethical. So, and if ever we find ourselves standing at crossroad with some 4 paths like practical, normal, legal, and ethical, I would say without hesitation, we must always walk with the ethical path. Because what is legal may not always be ethical. What is convenient may not always be right. And what is common practice may not always uphold the integrity of our profession. So as a chartered accountant, we don't just carry degree, we carry the responsibility. So responsibility to remain independent, responsibility to act with integrity, to objective, to maintain a confidentiality, and to ensure our work reflects professional competence and due care. So these are not just the words in one document. These are our principle we live by. And once we understand them, they become our second nature and helping us navigating even the most complex situation with clarity and confidence. So while the ICI provide robust framework to identify and manage ethical threats, especially with recent updates addressing emerging challenges, it is essential that we first develop a clear understanding of what these threats actually are. So now let's walk through one by one these 5 fundamental principles and threats. First principle, which talk about integrity. What is integrity? So, professional accountant, because in our new code of accountant, chartered account, the definition of professional accountant is who is a member of chartered accountant. So everywhere you will find the word is professional accountant, rather chartered accountant. So, a professional accountant shall be straightforward and honest in all professional and business relationship. So, the main crux is my integrity cannot be questionable. It should always be a unquestionable. You always have to be honest because this commitment goes beyond mere compliances. It implies a deep-seated adherence to fair dealing and truthfulness in every interaction. So because integrity is my core, so I cannot compromise with my quality, or I have to be honest all the time, truthful and fair dealing should be in all my interaction. So this doesn't give you a choice that, of course, you have to maintain your integrity. We can understand this with some more examples, like manipulating financial statement at client's request. That can be a example of compromising of your integrity. Say example, a client asks you to adjust some numbers in the financials to make them appear more favorable to the lender or investor, which is maybe for his business it is a normal because usko apni balance sheet manage karna hai. So definitely he will request you that please adjust some numbers because sometime to avail the bank limit also they will do that. Managing the stock, debtors, creditors to avail the CC, cash credit working capital is very common examples. So if client is requesting you to adjust some numbers, maybe even if it is not a outrightly fraud, it is not a fraud, but knowingly you are misstating figures. This is definitely violating your integrity. It's simple managing the figure, though it is not a fraud, but of course, it is compromising your integrity. So client may say that it's a very small number, इतना तो चलता है, हमारे business में बहुत practical है. Sometime we also agree to that. कि okay ठीक है, we understand their business, क्योंकि हम तो अपना छोड़ के उनका ज़्यादा समझने लगते हैं. So sometime we tend towards them and we try and accept that okay. So this is also can be a real life example in compromising of your integrity. Second example we can understand where we suppressing negative audit findings. Say example we have discovered an issue during an audit, but avoiding them by its mention to maintain the client relationship. Or maybe sometime some under pressure from even your firm, from leadership role or some management side. So this is also can be the example of compromising your integrity. If we कोई भी नेगेटिव ऑडिटिंग फाइंडिंग्स को हम डिस्क्लोज नहीं करते या उसको हाइड करके अपनी रिपोर्ट्स इफ यू आर गिविंग टू देम. The third, backdating or antedating documents. What should I say about this? Because this is, we all know that signing audit report or financial statement should be within the date and with a date earlier than the actually completion date to meet the deadline or satisfying to to satisfy the regulators if we are doing it. So backdate signing is of course definitely not ethical. But how many of we are following this? I have my own doubt. But this is deceptive and misleading stakeholders, so it will classify under compromising of your integrity. Next is accepting undisclosed gifts or benefits. Any inducements, gifts, if you are accepting from the client, of course, it is not appreciated in our code of ethics. And accepting the expensive gift hospitality facilities or benefit from a client, then too without disclosing it, then too it is of course violating your integrity. Even if if it is does not immediately impact your judgment, but of course there are high chances at later stage you may also tend to soft to them. So high chances to compromising your principle. So this raises a question on professional honesty and transparency. So please avoid by doing such, by putting in yourself in a such situation. Next is failing to disclose a conflict of interest. This is also a good example of compromising your integrity. Say example, or we are auditing a company where a close relative works over there, or where you have a hidden investment into particular company, or you have your any financial interest, and then too you have accepted that audit assignment without any disclosure. Because if you are accepting such an assignment, definitely there is a disclosure is required. And if you are not disclosing it and still accepting it, by knowing that if you will disclose it, of course, you have to leave this assignment, you will not be able to continue that. So definitely this situation will put you in a four corner because integrity demands full transparency. Next example can be misrepresenting professional qualification or experience. Most of the time, it happens that though we don't know about detail knowledge, but still we accept the assignment. So overstating your experience or area of expertise to just to win the client or to get the assignment or any project. Of course, this is a classic example of misrepresenting about you and your experience or your qualification. So, and this will classify under misleading representation, compromising the professional credibility. So, next is signing blank documents, signing the blank checks, blank audit report, or certificate to be filled later by someone else. This is not only a breach integrity, but is also a serious disciplinary concern. So be very careful before doing so. So now we cannot give a certificate to whomsoever is concerned. So even issuing a certificate to any party, you have to be very specific and you have to issue by addressing to the particular body, associates, or concern or person. So just blankly, you cannot issue one certificate where we are mentioning to whomsoever it may concern. So assisting in tax evasion is another example of compromising your integrity, because you are helping in tax evasion and which can never be justified. So be it intentionally or unintentionally, but advising client to use loopholes of the law or shell companies or fake invoices to just reduce tax liability without the substance. So these are the example where your integrity is compromised. So by taking a loophole of any law may sound sometime it's legal because we are just playing around the law. So, but ethics and law may differ. But integrity always call for truthfulness and fairness. So in short, if you feel need to hide something from the stakeholders, your colleagues, or your regulators, it is red flag that your integrity might be at stake, because we will not be transparent in that case. So what can be the consequences of breaching this integrity? It can be a severe and first I can say is like, of course, your image, your reputation will be damaged. Perhaps the most profound consequences is the irreparable loss of trust and credibility. So this can lead to negative media coverage, a significant decline in your client base, or and a severely tarnished professional image also. Second, it may lead to the legal ramifications, because breaches of integrity can lead to serious legal consequences. Individually, like including civil lawsuits for damages and criminal charges such as fraud, conspiracy, or embezzlement. And it can result into maybe imprisonment too. Disciplinary actions, third, of course, yes, if any complaint comes to the ICI by of yours of doing such activities, ICI impose penalties ranging from fine and reprimandments to suspension, even permanent exclusion from your membership for severe breaches. So this can be the cause of or consequences of breaching your principle. So in conclusion of the integrity, we can say is integrity is timeless and non-negotiable. It is not just about staying honest when someone is watching. It is about being truthful, fair, and transparent, even when no one is looking at you. So as a chartered accountant, our opinions shape financial decisions. Our opinions can influence investor confidence and uphold public trust. So, a single compromise in integrity can cause lasting damage to your client, to our firm, and to our profession's credibility. So, there is no right way to do a wrong thing. So, integrity means choosing what is right over what is easy, and being truthful over being popular. So with this, we can move towards our second principle of objectivity. Objectivity means that chartered accountant must not allow bias or conflict of interest or undue influence of others to override your professional judgment, which means you cannot be biased towards your known people, and you can deviate from your professional judgment. In simple words, we can say objectivity is about thinking independently and fairly. Even if you are under pressure, influenced by any personal relationship or tempered by personal gain in every situation, be it whether what the situation may be, but your thinking should be independently and fairly. Regarding some professional integrity, we have to maintain intellectual honesty and ethical standard is definitely crucial for objective decision making. Our independence in appearing and facts, objectivity requires both being and appearing independent, ensuring public confidence in the accountant's work. So let's understand more with through the some examples how we can understand where this can be compromised, objectivity can be compromised. The first we can understand from the conflict of interest. Being involved in both preparing and auditing financials for the same entity, or advising the both buyer and seller in the particular transactions, it creates a conflict of interest. And when situation arises where you have to take a stand for one, so that time you will not remain objective, because you are advising to both buyer and seller both. So the same situation may arise when you are having a ownership stake or loan from a client. So you can be biased bias in your judgment. Second examples we can understand from the fees dependency. So relying heavily on fees from a single client may create pressure to overlook the issues and can be a question mark that whether your objectivity principle is intact or not. Fear of losing the client or retaliation can deter you from independent judgment. So that also can be the example of where your objectivity can be compromised. So in conclusion of objectivity is what we can say is objectivity is the soul of professionalism. It ensures that truth speaks louder than influence. So we can say it ethical cornerstone, deliver unbiased, independent and fair professional judgment, even in the most challenging situation. About vigilance and transparency, constant awareness and open disclosure will strengthen and will be as good as defense against the threat. You can enhance credibility. A CA who stays objective, build trust, not just with the client, but with the society at large. And that trust is the cornerstone of our profession. So moving towards the third next principle, professional due care and competence. So if we are chartered accountant and if we are performing any activities, it is understood or assumed that you have that knowledge which is required for to perform the particular activity. So this principle talks about CA attend and maintain professional knowledge and skill at the level required to ensure that a client or employer receives competent professional services based on current development in practice, legislation, and techniques. So, which means if you have accepted any assignment, then it is expected from you that you possess all the knowledge which is required to perform for particular assignment. Like if you are doing a tax audit, then you should have knowledge of Income Tax Act thoroughly. If you are accepting the company audit, it is expecting from you that you are having a complete knowledge of Companies Act. And same with forensic audit, social audit, energy audit, and etc. So not only in that, in complying with the principle of professional competence and due care, you'll have to take the reasonable steps to ensure that those who are working under you as a professional capacity, so that person also have appropriate training, appropriate knowledge, maybe by training and supervision, which means this is applicable to your team members also. And if you don't have that knowledge and skill, which you have accepted that assignment, then either you train yourself, upgrade yourself and your team, or you can always hire some equally capable person in your team. See, if you have to take utmost care of this principle, because if any time if mishappen is done, then you'll not be able to say, or you'll not be able to give any excuses later on that I was not aware about it. Yeah, मुझे पता नहीं था. It was a recent update था. Miss हो गया. So it's a matter of professional reputation also and safeguards client interest also. So these kind of mistakes will not be tolerated. Let's understand more with some examples. So let's take one scenario where an auditor fails to verify tax deductions. So in case of tax audit, अगर हम किसी भी क्लाइंट का रिव्यू ठीक से नहीं करते और डिडक्शंस प्रॉपरली वेरीफाई नहीं हुए, so then later stage पे if any assessment at the time of assessment or scrutiny or appeal, at that time if client may face some penalty or interest, then definitely it will create a question mark on your capabilities also. And that definitely it's a matter of reputation of profession and also yourself too. So, and if complaint has been filed, that matter can go to any extent. So this can be a consequences where you and client both have to suffer. So lesson is insufficient review represent a breach of due care, that is for sure, and highlighting the importance of thoroughness. So you should have that much of knowledge within you or your team members, or else you should not accept such type of assignment which you are not capable enough to perform that. Let's take one more example. If a chartered accountant prepares a financial statement containing material misstatement due to lack of expertise, we can say, जैसे Ind AS was applicable, but we have prepared the balance sheet as per IGAP because we were not aware that this company को Ind AS applicable है, and because of lack of expertise, we have prepared a wrong financial statement in a wrong format, or we have prepared in the Ind AS format but was not having a sufficient knowledge, so classification of assets or liability was not proper. So in such type of situations, definitely the investor who is looking at the balance sheet of the client और उसके ऊपर रिलाई करके अगर उसके कोई डिसीजन लेना है तो डेफिनेटली इट विल इम्पैक्ट इन्वेस्टर्स डिसीजन, एंड एफएस की करेक्टनेस की रिलायबिलिटी पे डाउट आ जाता है, and definitely this is will be your mistake if caught. So in such situation may impact both you and client. So takeaway is competence lapses undermine the reliability of financial reporting and harm stakeholders. So be very careful while accepting such type of assignments. Next example, when this both were we have discussed for the audit purpose or some consultancy purpose. Now let's take some consultancy engagement where competence can be violated. If you are providing a consultancy in those area where you don't have the expertise, especially when you provide a strategic advice, so जिसके बेस पे operational decisions depend करते हैं, so in that case there are high chances कि client को financial loss bear करना पड़े. So it's always suggest that please don't accept if you don't have that much of expertise in those area. So maintaining competence key practices, what can be? Is like in real professional life, we often face situations like we face of pressure of earnings. Because of this pressure, sometimes we may accept the assignment where we are not expertise also. So then you always have an option to continuous education. So you can upgrade yourself by attending learning courses. So ICI is continuously doing it for the members. So take benefit of it. Second, I can say is keep eye on regulation updates. Regulatory changes in time to time. So you should be aware about it. You should be updated with some regulation changes. Also, if you feel and if needed, expert consultation is also suggested. Like hire some expert in your team, or you can consult with some expert to perform special services like valuation. If you can consult, if you're doing or giving us some valuation services. So moving towards our next principle of confidentiality. So in definition, this principle requires an accountant to respect the confidentiality of the information, which you may acquire as a result of professional and employment relationship. Since safeguarding sensitive client data and business insight is very, very crucial. So this principle is very much important. So core principle of this confidentiality is, first is no disclosure. Whatever information you have acquired, you should not disclose to any third parties without proper and specific authority, unless there is a legal or professional right or duty to disclose it. So which means unless until it is not bound by any statute or act, you will not provide such information to any third party. Also, confidential information, whatever you have acquired, you should not be used for your personal advantage of the professional accountant or third parties. So this principle says that you have to take a reasonable steps to ensure that the person under your control, which means your maybe article or some staff or some individuals from whom advice and assistance are obtained. So that person also will respect the accountant's duty of confidentiality. So which means this principle, this responsibility is just not on your shoulder. Even to take care of this confidentiality principle of your team is your responsibility. And this is an ongoing duty. So this principle is applicable even after your engagement is over, which means you shall continue to comply with the principle of confidentiality even after the end of the relationship between you and your client. Key aspects of confidentiality. See, the scope is huge because it is covering all information acquired during your professional engagement. So this includes financial record and business strategies also. Both written and verbal, both communications are protected. So चाहे आपने कहीं से सुना है या आपको डॉक्यूमेंट से पता चला, so information कैसे भी आपके पास आई हो, you have to take care of this confidentiality principle. There are some exceptions also to it, and exception is only when you need to disclose it is if it is a legal obligation, like maybe court orders hai, or reporting some illegal acts or something like that. So if something is like that, only that time you can disclose such type of information. Else you are not supposed to provide any information to any third party. To follow in a proper manner, you can always use a safeguards by implementing control. This include the secure IT system and physical access restrictions and employee training can also safeguard you from violating this confidentiality principle. Let's understand with some practical cases. Practical case first we can take is like insider trading. During your assignment, you come across or you come to know about the company is going for merger or acquisition, and you bought some stock before public announcement. So basically, what you have done is you have used this information for your personal use, which is definitely an ethical violation, and which may lead to you any consequences like legal penalties, disciplinary actions, and reputational damage, of course. Second case is a data breach. If data has been taken out from the client premises without their permission, it is an example of ethical violation, because by failing to implement adequate security control, an accountant may have to face the consequences if they have done it. So be mindful at if you are doing something like this. So one more example we can say is like whistleblowing. Is this also a violation of confidentiality? So like during our engagement, if we come across any fraud or any activity which is against of principle of business, then do we need to whistleblow? Do we need to report it? Then of course, NOCLAR is also talking about it, which we have discussed earlier. And fraud reporting and Companies Act also bound us to report if you know something like this. So in such situation, if you feel so that something is going on in the company which is completely against of business ethics, so your duty to report it. So at that time, it will not be treated as that you have shared this information to the third party. And but you should keep your safeguard in your mind, and you should go through the internal process, and before doing this take some legal advice also, because see, reporting a fraud is not just a word. You can't say that कि ऐसा मुझे फीलिंग है, ऐसे फिलर्स है कि ये सिचुएशन में फ्रॉड हो सकता है, और आई came to know from some person in the company that some fraud is going on in the company. So it's just not a word. You have to have a very strong reason or some proofs in your hand. Then only you should blow the whistle, or you can report it to, or you share this information to the affecting authority, as the case may be. One more example we can say is like client poaching. If CA was employed somewhere else earlier, and now he has joined some other new company, and if he is using the information which he has acquired during his previous employment to solicit the client for the new company, it is clear-cut a breach of confidentiality, and that person, the chartered accountant, may have to face the noise in terms of legal action or ICI disciplinary actions, and of course, reputational damage too. So maintaining confidentiality in the digital age is again very, very important. See, we all are living in the digital era. And today, AI is playing a very crucial role in accounting and auditing world. We are working remotely, where all the data has been shared through over the email or cloud. Also, in such a scenario, somewhere of the other way, we are sharing the data. So data security in such type of situation is more significant. So we should take care of, first is cybersecurity. We have to implement a robust security measure. We have to use encryptions, firewalls, and multi-factor authentications. And if you are working remotely, we have to establish secure remote access policies and utilize VPN and secure communication channel. Take care that we implement data loss prevention also. And in case of cloud computing, we have to ensure cloud providers have adequate security, verify data encryption and access control. So at that level, you have to go and check that whether any compromise in confidentially is happening or not. If you are doing remotely and you are sharing the data over the email or some other way of digitally. In conclusion of confidentiality principle, we can say confidentiality is the silent promise that build lasting trust. So first, fundamental obligation is important. So confidentiality is not just about withholding information. It is about protecting the trust. Second, we can conclude in building trust. So client, employers, and the public, all they place immense confidence in us to safeguard this information, even after our professional relationship ends. So you have to take care at that level. Third is integrity. We have to maintain integrity of the profession. There is no doubt about it. And fourth, we can conclude of confidentiality with the vigilance. Continuous adherence to the standard is essential part. So no choice of it. The next and fifth and last fundamental principle is our professional behavior, complying with laws and regulation. So this principle says that professional accountant, means chartered accountant, shall comply with this principle, which requires to chartered accountant to comply with relevant law and regulation and avoid any conduct that the accountant knows or should know might discredits to the profession. मतलब ऐसा कोई भी काम आपको नहीं करना है जो प्रोफेशन की इमेज को डिसरिप्यूट कर दे. And it is also required that you have to conduct your affairs, your activities, your behavior in such a manner that you always remain outside the boundaries of professional and other misconduct. So it covers everything. So once you are a professional, you always behave like a professional at every corner of your life, be it professional or personal. So this is something this principle talks about. So once we discussed about our fundamental principles, which was integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, and confidentiality, and most importantly, your professional behavior. So after this fundamental principle, I have to see that, is there any threat to me or to my principle if I do certain activities together? और अगर कोई भी एक्टिविटीज करने से मेरे कोई भी प्रिंसिपल कॉम्प्रोमाइज होते हैं तो मुझे कौन सा थ्रेट है? There are 5 threats which is mentioned in volume 1 code of conduct, code of ethics, which I mentioned in my earlier slides also. The first is self-review threat. What is the definition of self-review threat? when this threat arises. So this threat arises when a professional accountant is in a position of reviewing their own work or your own judgment. We all know that if I am writing a books of accounts, I cannot become an auditor of the company. So this two activities we cannot perform together. Why? Because the work I have done, I am going to review of the same work. So if I prepare the financial statement of the company and later on I am also appointed as the auditor of the same company, so in that case there are a strong possibility that I may overlook some errors, intentionally or unintentionally, both. So that I may overlook the errors. Why? Because if any mistake, first of all, so I'll not be able to find out because I have only done the work. But if any mistake, if I found also later stage, so it reflects on my own previous work. So naturally, there may be a hesitation in highlighting such errors to management, as it could could point back to my own lapses. So I'll not do that. So this is exactly the kind of situation that gives rise a self-review threat, where the objectivity and independence of the professionals may compromise. Now the question is, how do we address to this threat, or how we can mitigate them? If suppose I found some SRT, some self-review threat, so how I can mitigate them? So one of the most effective safeguard is to engage independent reviewer or separate team for preparation and audit responsibility, which means you can prepare a two team, one is doing an audit and one is doing an other activities. So by ensuring that different individuals or different teams handle the preparation and the audit, both different, we create a layer of objectivity, and we will reduce the biasness and safeguard the independence also, and quality of our audit process. So always you can mitigate this. If you are doing if the team is different, then no question of self-review threat. The second threat is self-interest threat. So this threat arises when professional accountant has a financial or other personal interest in the company that could unduly influence their judgment or behavior. So example, we can understand maybe like imagine you are auditing a company where you hold a shares, or if you're not holding, your spouse is holding, or your close relative is holding, or your close relative is employed in a same company as a key managerial position. So in such cases, your financial or emotional interest might subconsciously affect your professional skepticism, maybe your reporting decisions. There are high chances. So even if you intend to stay objective, but the mere presence of such interest create a perception of bias, which is just as harmful. So a threat to independence does not only come from what we do, but also come from how it appears to others. So if it is appearing to others that I have an interest, then of course threat is there. Probably I will not bias or I will not deteriorate from my main object, but since it is looking from outside, the threat is there. how we can mitigate this threat. To reduce or eliminate the self-interest threat, one can avoid engagement where there is a direct financial interest. See, if we decline that assignment, there is no question of this threat. We have declined it. We have eliminated the threat. So we have avoided engagement. But second, what we can do is we can disclose this relationship that may impair independence. We have disclosed it. Yes, I have this financial interest, or my close relative is there, and still you want me to do it. Of course, we are ready to do that. So we have already disclosed this, and this is not a significant. If it is significant, then definitely Companies Act are also bounding you that you cannot go it for that. So if it is not significant, but at the same time disclosure is necessary. Third is implement safeguard is again option to mitigate this type of threats. This safeguard is a new addition to the code of ethics. In this new revised code, they've introduced a safeguard. और यहाँ पे हर एक threats के लिए they've given a safeguard. How you can reduce it? First, you have to evaluate it that क्या मुझे कोई threat है. Then फिर देखो कि whether it is a significant, कितना significant है, क्या important है वो मेरे लिए है. Then evaluation के बाद में, then if you found that yes, it is a significant threat, then you have to see that how you have to mitigate it, how you can mitigate this threat. Either end the situation who is creating the threat, such as like removing the individuals from the engagement team. Say example, in your team members, one is having a financial interest. And if you have removed it from your engagement team, then the threat is over. Now, so यहाँ पे हमने वो threat के लिए ये safeguard दिया है. So we, like if I'm holding a shares of the company, I can sell anytime before accepting the assignment and remove the threat जो मुझे threat create कर रहा था. Engaging an independent third party to review the work. We can always hire a third person to review our own work. And if the answer and report is the same as good as we prepared, then there is no problem. You can go ahead and accept the assignment. Or you can restructure the engagement also to eliminate the conflict. So there are safeguard also has been given. So you can adopt as per your case. So where there is a conflict between personal gain and professional duty, ethics always demand that we always choose integrity over the interest. So first, you have to see your integrity, then about your interest. Third threat is my advocacy threat. So an advocacy threat arises when a professional accountant or promoters or defends a client's position or interest to the point that their objectivity is compromised, which means sometimes we behave as if that we are advocate of the company, not as an auditor of the company. So you have to keep yourself away from the company and you have to see the situation from outside. You cannot represent your client always and to protect them and to take their side. So practically we can understand from the example, like suppose you are representing your client before tax authority to justify an aggressive tax position. And you are also the statutory auditor of the particular for the same client. So now imagine if that aggressive tax treatment is later questioned during the audit. Definitely you might hesitate to challenge it objectively because you have already taken a stand in its favor. So And the same thing has happened, which we have earlier. I've explained that you have done the audit, you have allowed all the expenses, you have given the report that the financial statements are reflecting true and fair view, all expenses are business expenditure, all incomes are business income, and nothing has been skipped from जो हमने रिपोर्ट नहीं करी है. And later stage पे if officer do the some addition in the income or disallow some director's personal expenses or something like that, and you are accepting the same. So that type of situation may arises because you representing in a both scenario as an auditor also and as an advocate also. So this can be compromise your independence and place you in a position where you are seen as a part of the client's team rather than as an impartial professional or auditor. So you cannot audit what you have already defended. So this was the advocacy threat. Now let's see that how we can mitigate this threat. To address an advocacy threat, the some safeguards may be used, like you should not take a representation role for your audit client in some matters where disputes can be arises. You can always hire someone else, some different team, or you can within your organization also you can use different teams for the different work. Like we always heard that in big firms we have seen that audit department is different, consultancy is different, litigation team is totally different. So if you are using such type of structure, then of course you can mitigate your risk little bit. So because your both the team is different, you can engage an external expert also. You can outsource it. You are one of the activity. If you see that if you have done the audit, you can outsource your litigation work of the same client to some other third party, any other chartered accountant firm. You can disclose the nature of services and assess whether continuing both roles is appropriate or not. So as a professional, our role is to assess, not to argue, to report fairly, not to advocate selectively. So please keep this in your mind while doing such type of activities together. Next threat is familiarity threat. A familiarity threat arises when due to some close or long standing relationship, a professional accountant becomes too sympathetic or trusting of the client and potentially impairing professional judgment. Since we are associated since long, in example, we can understand like if you have been auditing the same company for last 10 years, and over the period you have built a very strong relationship with their CFO, their directors, or some accounts team members, because in so many years you are doing it daily, you are interacting with them. So somewhere you developed a good rapport with them. And now if during the audit, if some unusual transaction all of a sudden appears, you found something and you ask them, but the CFO is explaining and trying to justify whatever the unusual transaction was. Maybe it is a bribery or whatever it is. So the person who is in your close relation, the person will try to explain you that please understand our situation. Please be on our side and understand our business also, else our business cannot run. So these type of transactions or these type of activities, generally we do that. So you might be tempted to accept the CFO's explanation without adequate scrutiny. Not because of you are negligent, but because of you are long-standing trust in the particular individuals. So he must have hidden from you some facts and you have accepted because you have not checked those transactions in detail. So similarly, suppose a senior partner's close relative is a key managerial person at the client's office. So this personal connection also can influence your independence. So it's not about what is done wrong, but about what could be perceived as done too comfortably. So this thread is talking about it, where you are very familiar with your client. We have understand this with the example also. Now, how we can mitigate this threat? It's not like that कि अगर 10 साल से मैं audit कर रही हूँ तो अब नहीं करूँगी. You can continue, but with your ethics. So how we can mitigate these type of threats which is arises due to long standing relations. So to reduce this, you can rotate senior team members regularly. जैसे पार्टनर्स रोटेशन वी नो दैट कंपनीज एक्ट में तो वो मैंडेटरी है इफ यू आर डूइंग इन अ लिस्टेड कंपनी ऑडिटर 5 years and then firm को 5 years, so maximum 10 years you can be continue and partner is 5 years. So even if you are not doing in a listed company audit or other work also, you can rotate a senior team members regularly, especially for long-term engagement. Or you can introduce some fresh reviewer also who can look at the work with a neutral eye. Because sometimes if we are very close and we are watching very closely to the business, sometimes it may be possible that we may overlook some important things which a third person will look at with a neutral eye. So next, we can mitigate this threat through avoid to very close or personal or family relationship with your client. Personal, we always say that your professional and personal life should be different altogether. They both should not be mixed. So the same you should maintain with your client also. You should not be go with very close or familiar relationship with your client. One more example we can take to mitigate the risk is apply heightened professional skepticism in long-standing engagement, which means it is understood that whatever we are doing is under our professional skepticism. But sometimes when we are very close, we बहुत सारी चीजें छूट जाती है. So very strong professional skepticism के साथ आप ऐसे engagement को perform कर सकते हैं. So in ethics, familiarity should not lead to leniency. So independence must be seen and felt, both in action and your perceptions also. So that way you can mitigate it. And impact, of course, social ties or friendships may lead to unconscious bias or favoritism. So you should always try that जितना आप दूर से मेंटेन कर सकते हैं उतना करना चाहिए. Next threat is my intimidation threat. So an intimidation threat occurs when a professional accountant is deterred from acting objectively, maybe due to acute or perceived pressure, which may be explicit or implicit. So this threat can come from clients, from employers, or even colleagues. and may influence the accountant's ability to exercise professional judgment and skepticism. So, sometime by our own self also, this threat can be arises like due date pressure hai. So pressure can be any. So if we are performing, if professional accountants are performing any activity under the pressure, this is the intimidation threat arises. If you are performing any kind of pressures. So say example, client pressures, of course, client anytime says that if you qualify the audit report, we will reconsider our engagement with your firm for the next year. And we always feel so कि अगर हमने ज़्यादा strongly रिपोर्ट किया तो शायद अगले साल की ऑडिट हमको नहीं मिलेगा, अगले साल का एंगेजमेंट नहीं मिलेगा. एंड वी फील सो ओके, थोड़ा सा इसको सॉफ्ट करके रिपोर्टिंग कर देते हैं. तो जो हमको रिपोर्ट क्वालिफाई करनी थी या एडवर्स देनी थी, वो हमने सिर्फ एम्फेसिस ऑफ मैटर में दे दी, या फिर जनरली नो उसको बिना रिपोर्ट किए छोड़ दिया, समथिंग अनमॉडिफाइड रिपोर्ट दे दी. Employer also can influence. If you are a CFO in the company and CFO wants, maybe by their employer, that if this report shows high losses, or if you are not accepting some deductions, you may need to reconsider your future with the company. So this is a coercive pressure that challenges objectivity. Sometimes regularity or legal threats also can be attracted, like a government official subtly hints that if the accountants does not cooperate a certain way, compliances check may intensify. Or even without action, this perceived threats can impair objectivity. So how to mitigate is always you can maintain a written documentation of undue influence of coercions. So that can be a proof against your act. Involve higher level of authority or the firm's ethics committee when you feel threatened. Always you should consult with them. Withdraw from the engagement if you feel so ki the threats are not resolved and objectivity may compromise या मुझे करना पड़ सकता है. Leave those assignments. Immediately you should resign it from the particular engagement. Or you may seek some legal advice or some professional advice when you feel under pressure. So you can discuss with your some senior person, or whenever you feel जिसको भी आप बात कर सकते हो, तो just take advice from legal advice from them कि अगर आप इसको ऐसे नहीं ऐसे करते हो तो what can be the consequences. So they may guide you in a better way, because when we are under pressure, we are not able to take the proper decisions. So some other person is always better. They will give you a right advice. And also you can refer our ICI Code of Ethics, which provides detailed guidance on dealing with such type of threats. So in nutshell, we can say ethics is not just about resisting temptation. It is also about withstanding pressure. So ethical threats are part of our professional reality. What matter is how we identify, how we evaluate this, and how we mitigate them. That is really important. So we have discussed about threats also: self-review threat, self-interest threat, advocacy threat, familiarity threat, and intimidation threat. Now I have mentioned that in our new Code of Ethics, safeguard has been introduced. So safeguard has also introduced against the threat. So how we can safeguard ourselves if we come across any threats. So openly declaring conflicts help manage potential threats transparently, which we have discussed that we can disclose it and document it, which we have just now discussed in the example. Some quality control. So you can always implementing a robust procedure will reduce risk of bias and errors. Third is independent review. Third party evaluations provide objective checks on work and decisions. So it is always a better choice to perform independent review, to get it done from others. And partner rotation. It is always there. Keep changing audit partners periodically prevents this kind of threats like familiarity threat or so. So this is how we can reduce our threats. So we have discussed our basic fundamental principles and the threats. And I would put it in a way that whenever in your professional life, if you come across any situation, that time you feel so whether I can do it or cannot do it. क्या मुझे ये करना है या नहीं करना है? So the first question you should ask by yourself is, by doing this activity, whether I am compromising my principle, which we have discussed, is integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, professional care, and professional behavior. So whether this activity will compromise my any principle, if answer is no, then of course you can go ahead. The second is, by doing this activity, is I am attracting any threat to me, just like self review threat. सो अगर मैंने ई बुक्स लिखी और मैं ही ऑडिट कर रही हूं तो क्या मेरे प्रिंसिपल कॉम्प्रोमाइज हो रहे हैं? शायद नहीं, बट क्या थ्रेट है? यस है, देर इज अ सेल्फ रिव्यू थ्रेट. सी, थ्रेट है इसका ये मतलब नहीं है यू कैन नॉट परफॉर्म इट. It doesn't mean you cannot do that, but you have to evaluate before doing it. So evaluation mechanism is also there. So मैंने जब ये देखा कि मुझे कोई थ्रेट है, yes, I have identified what level the threat is. If it is significant, as I said earlier also, if it is significant, then there is no choice. You have to eliminate that threat, or you if you can down to the threat to the acceptable level. So what is your acceptable level? जहां तक कि आप वो threat को accept कर सकते हैं, that you have to assess by yourself. कि if this threat you can manage it, you will not compromise your principle even though the threat is there. If the evaluation mechanism is saying so and you are agree to it, then no problem. And if it is not, then there is an option, safeguard available. Use it. You can take a third party review. You can do necessary checks and meds as your case may be, and then come to the conclusion. So this is the whole process to identify the any situation which is you are facing it. So I'm in conclusion of today's session, I can say is maintaining ethical standard is not a choice or one-time job. To uphold the dignity and the trust our profession commands, we must be unwavering in our commitments to ethics. So integrity and accountability must be cultivated at every level of our organizations, not just in policy, but in practice too. So this is a established culture of ethics. You should always promote integrity and accountability at all organization level through strong ethical leadership. Second is continuous education or continuous training. Of course, again, it is not an optional. It is essential. बिकॉज वी चार्टेड अकाउंटेंट हम हर रोज कोई ना कोई नया अपडेट सुनते हैं हमारे प्रोफेशन में. सो इट इज एसेंशियल टू एंश्योर that every professional remains alert to evolving laws, guidelines, and ethical standard. So regular training will definitely ensure awareness of ethical standards and updates in law and guidelines. Whenever you feel any doubt or when you are in doubt, seeking advice or guidance from senior professional or ethics committees is always good. It is not your weakness. It will not show as your weakness. So please consult your senior professionals or ethics committee whenever you are in doubt to uphold the standards. So, and above all, we must have the courage to identify the report misconduct. However, uncomfortable it may be, because silence in the face of wrongdoing threatens the very credibility of our profession. So I would say is report unethical behavior, actively identified it, and report misconduct to maintain the professional's credibility. That's the whole crux, I can say, for today's sessions. So let us lead by example, ethically, responsibly, and fearlessly. That is the mark of our true profession. And with this, I can end my presentation by saying this, that your reputation is made by what you do, not what you say. So let us always remain vigilant and uphold the highest standard in our professional duties. So with this, really, thank you so much for patiently hearing me. So now we can take some question answer. Pradnya, do you have some questions?
Yes, ma'am. First of all, a very insightful session. I mean, it has really given us a different perspective. Like, there are all the challenges. In fact, हम लोग भी डे टू डे बेसिस में जो challenges face करते हैं, it's always good to, listen from a senior person that it's possible that you can take a stand which matches your, I mean, the courage you were talking about. थोड़ा किसी सीनियर से सुनते हैं तो थोड़ा लगता है कि हाँ, it's possible and it's the correct way to go forward. We have received some very interesting questions. So first question is, um, sometimes clients want to do all related works. Can we upload those works to other chartered accountants or professional on our own account as client says we know only you? I mean, I think the person wants to ask, can we just take work from a client, all related works, and then can we give it on assignment basis and get it billed from in their own?
Without the consent of the client, you should not do that. That is my submission. We have with us Secretary ESB also. He can also throw some light on this. My submission is that, of course, without the client permission, you cannot share the data with anyone. So subletting or subcontracting should not be there unless until client is agree to it.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yes, yes. This is correct. This is
I
correct.
mean, you want like, sorry. So would like to add something?
Huh. I was saying that Madam is right, that the client must consent if this is referred to the. We have allowed the referral of work to another chartered accountant, and he can also receive referral fees, but it should be at the client's permission first, and then he can, of course, refer it to other chartered accountant.
Okay. It's the second question is one of the most common questions, I guess. I don't know, but it often pops up when we discuss about marketing and advertising. Can CAs advertise through a newspaper?
एडवर्टाइजमेंट कैसे करना है वो इम्पोर्टेंट है, न्यूज़पेपर के थ्रू तो नहीं. इफ द directly they are asking that we can publish our advertisement that Shwetajan and company is providing services and so and so and so and so area in the newspaper ad. This is not, as of today, is not allowed.
Okay. My
Any
client,
more thing, Ashish ji, from your side?
Uh, Well, through newspaper, it's a very limited thing that after this advertisement guidelines 2008, the advertisement through write-up has been allowed, and the write-up actually includes a print media also. So we, as a write-up, only those contents which are in advertisement that can be mentioned, but
Your
that should be.
article you can publish in newspaper or some newsletters or some journals, but the plain blanket ad of your services is not.
Yeah, yeah, that is not okay. That is not okay. Yes.
Okay. Another question is, uh, can chartered accountants who are statutory auditor of a company, can they issue certificates to them for tender participation?
Tender participation. So what is the
Huh.
content basically just for the that figures which they've audited?
Yeah, yeah. I guess most
That
of the time,
I think yes, they can do it.
uh, I mean, so do you like have another opinion, or is it correct?
Yes,
I mean,
ma'am.
it's
It's fine, ma'am. That this certification is also an assurance function, so there's no issue if the certificates are being given to the by the auditor itself.
because lot of tender certification is done by statutory auditor, and they specifically ask to take turnover certifications or net worth certifications from their statutory auditors. So this gives a clarity. Yeah. Another question is, I want to set up a private limited company for valuation work. This can be a simple private company or it can be a management consulting company. What would you suggest or recommend?
See, there are a lot of questions related to that. Yesterday only I was talking to Ashish ji also for that only, that for valuation work you are saying. So Ashish ji, if you can speak on this, that would be great. Because they are asking, I think it should be a private limited under the registered with ICI or some other with non-CAs also, something like that.
Yes. Uh, Actually, madam, this section 25 of Chartered Accountants Act, it says that the accountancy should not be done through a company. So there is a general bar on that one cannot practice through a company. However, this exemption which has been made, which allows members in practice to undertake the section 224 services through a company, that should be only a management consultancy company which is registered with ICI, and the corporate form of practice guidelines govern those guidelines. So if the member is doing engage only into the section 224 services, then can be done through a company, but that company should strictly only be a management consultancy company and not any private limited company.
And
Okay.
then non-CAs also can be part of it.
Non-CA, this is actually, this is silent. These guidelines are silent on the non-CA being directors.
Correct.
But we had once taken this agenda to the council, and council did not agree to include a non-CA as directors in this guidelines. So as of now, we should think we should treat that only the chartered accountant practice can be directors in such company, and their relatives can be shareholders along with them. So that permission is there, but this is not allowed that a non-CA may be a director.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So we had a related question, was that if we have an MCC and can we have non-CA directors there, and are there any limits on how many CAs and non-CAs we need? I think Ashish sir has
Already answered.
answered in this reply for the same question. But then I see lot of questions related to MCC. So I understand if the company is an MCC, one can continue practice and one can also become a whole-time director. So do we have any limit on the salary or fees we can have? And can we also become the managing director in the same company?
So the question is whether I can
Very long question.
withdraw a director remuneration. Correct?
Yeah,
First,
and also can I also hold a COP, and can I also become managing director slash whole-time director in the company?
if MCC is there, then answer will be yes. Because if you are a director, of course, you can withdraw some remunerations also from the company, and you can become a proprietor or partner also simultaneously in your firm. Right, Ashish ji?
Yes, right, right.
So I think we are done with almost all the questions. So thank you so much, Shweta ma'am, and thank you so much ESB board for giving me the opportunity to attend and also moderate this wonderful session. With this, I would request Ashish sir, Secretary ESB board, to give vote of the thanks for today's program.
Thank you, ma'am. Uh, Myself, Ashish Bhatnagar, Secretary to Ethical Standard Board. I thank CA Shweta Jain, madam, for the wonderful session on ICI Code of Ethics, navigating ethical challenges, which will definitely fulfill the objective of dissemination of ethical provisions to the members. I also thank CA Pradnya Bam ji for moderating the session so well. I thank Chairman Ethical Standard Board CA Chandrasekhar Chitle sir for his insightful address on the requirements of contemporary code of ethics. I thank all the members for registering and listening to the session. Uh, Keep listening to the webinars of Ethical Standard Board on new issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shweta ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Yep. Yeah, please end. Please end.
Just trying.